It's the subtlety of language that's really important, because if we ask ourselves, what will we do? There you're looking for more definitive outcomes, aren't you? You're looking for more definitive solutions to the problem. Whereas the way you framed it seemed very much more exploration. There's no commitment, there's no judgment. Let's just see where this takes us.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Rob from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Ricky from Thinking Focus. And today, the question is, how can you get stuff done in 3 steps?
Great question. And how many times do we get asked this question? Not necessarily about the 3 steps, but how do you just get stuff done? Is there a magic formula? And for us, 3 things, really. Clarity, creativity, and criticality.
Well, is that it then, Rob? Are we done?
Yeah, let's fill in some colour.
Yeah, let's paint this out a bit, shall we? Okay, so we talked about 3 steps: clarity, creativity, and criticality, I suppose. So let's start at the beginning then, Rob. Talk me through clarity. What's that all about?
So clarity really is, what are you actually going to do? How clear are you about that? And why it's important for you to do that? Because if you think about what you want to do and why it's important at the same time, ask yourself those 2 questions, or, if you're working with somebody, ask those questions and have them front and center. It helps you to really be clear, very specific about what the outcome is you're looking for, the expectation, the end point. So clarity really is about, what is it I want? What is it I want to achieve or gain or fix? And why is that important? What makes it so important to focus on that as opposed to something else, for example?
This sounds to me a little bit like you're getting smart.
Yes. Yeah. So, and for those of you maybe out there unaware of SMART as an acronym for defining goals, it's being specific. It's about thinking about a measure, how you're going to measure your outcome, thinking about how achievable that might be, how relevant it is to what else you've got going on. And finally, although for us, we put this first, what's the time frame in terms of doing that? So if you think about SMART as a goal defining method, if you can answer all of those questions, that really helps you to get clarity. And the only element that I haven't sort of mentioned so far in the what and the why is the little element of can I? A question about, contextualizing your level of confidence or belief in your ability to actually do the thing that you want to do.
And of course, in all of this, it's all about choice, right? So you get to choose what you focus on, like you said. You get to choose how important this is to you. And, you know me, I relate this to the botheredometer. Yeah. How bothered am I? In context of everything, like you said, everything else that I've got going on. Because if you're not bothered, or you're only partially bothered, you're going to get found out really quickly, because when something else comes along, like a game of top trumps, it will move this one to one side, won't it? If we're not truly focused in terms of a strong why.
Absolutely. And it's, without getting sort of too deep and meaningful about the choice that you've got with whether it's realistic as part of SMART or relevant as part of SMART, that the point that you've just made really makes that really critical, because we can all work on stuff that we find easy or stuff that we can get some clarity about in terms of, its description. But is it really relevant? Is it the thing that you should be focused on right now? And that's really for us why we think about relevance instead of thinking about realistic. Because the argument goes, anybody can write a realistic goal. And if you're thinking about, well, can I do it? Just about anybody can write a very easy goal in terms of its achievability. It's well within your capability, in other words. But this is why, goals should be stretching. So for us, get back to the headline of getting clarity. Clarity as a starting point, if you want to get stuff done, it's absolutely sort of a fundamental importance that you think about answers to 3 very basic questions. What is it? Why is it important to me? Why this rather than something else? And can I actually do it? Have I got a sense of confidence or belief that it is within my ability to achieve the thing that I'm setting out to achieve, whether it's to solve a problem or to get a goal completed.
And I think the important thing about belief, of course, is that our belief at the beginning, it might be high, it might be in the middle of the road, it might actually be low, but it's recognizing that actually belief can go up and down throughout the entire duration of your goal. So when things are quite big, it's easy to kind of see just the headline and think, oh, that's easy. But when you start diving down into the detail, that can affect your confidence, and that can probably drop it down a little bit. So it's understanding, how do you manage the ups and downs of that confidence as you navigate through your goal.
And I would say that actually when you're starting off and you're doing this first step of the three about getting clarity, the belief bit is an assessment at that point in time. It might not be completely accurate because the belief, if you like, assessment leads us to the next step of the three. Because if you start then doing some creative thinking about how to reach your goal, your belief, to your point, can go up, it can go down, because now you're thinking about different options. So the getting clarity piece, you have to ask yourself the question, do I have at least a modicum of belief, enough belief to get started? And then to expect that as you complete the process of going through all three of these steps that we're talking about, exactly to your point, assess your belief again, because it could have gone up, it could have gone down, could have stayed the same.
And I think what we would always talk about with regards to clarity is there's no point doing anything else unless you're clear about what you want, why you want it, and have a degree of confidence, more belief than doubt that you can actually go and achieve the goal that you're thinking about.
Yeah, true story. Don't how many times do we advise the people that we work with, don't leave the clarity bit. Don't be in a hurry to get into the how-to try to think of ideas. Don't leave the clarity bit until you are absolutely clear.
Okay, so we've talked about clarity and getting the what, the why, the can I. Mm-hmm. What we then move into is the creative element of this. And this is often where people can kind of trip themselves up a little bit. They either dive into the same old ideas that they've used before, or they kind of just get stuck in and do stuff without even perhaps doing some thinking.
Yeah, it's like the first idea comes along and then they just explore that idea. And they might even, the idea might be fairly suitable and they might make some progress. But if you haven't done some rounded thinking or some broader thinking, then that's your only idea. What happens if at some point it fails or it doesn't take you to where you want to get to? So we tend to invite people, and we've got a whole pile of tools around these, to think about all of the options that you could possibly explore. The sort of people that you could get involved in achieving or solving your problem, and also the obstacles that might come your way, and do all of that thinking up front and do creative thinking about those things. So in other words, you're not making decisions about things at this point in time. You're just exploring, what could I do? What might I do? What else could help? So it's really being creative about the sort of different ideas that you could make use of.
And I think the interesting thing there is listening to is it's the subtlety of language that's really important. Because if we ask ourselves, what will we do? How can I do this? There you're looking for more definitive outcomes, aren't you? You're looking for more definitive solutions to the problem. Whereas the way you framed it seemed very much more exploration. There's no commitment. There's no judgment. Let's just see where this takes us. So what could we do? How might we possibly, attack this particular goal? What other options might there be in terms of things to do, people to involve, or what might there be in terms of obstacles? What might there be in terms of assumptions that we're making?
Yeah.
So I think that language is really important, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And, without sort of getting too into the way that our brains work consciously and subconsciously, it's very definitely subconscious language that is helpful at this point in time. Because, to your point exactly, if you think about language around could, might, and possibly, there is no definition about about the decisions that you have to make. This is all about all we're thinking about is ideas. You don't have to make commitment at this point in time. You're just thinking about ideas. And what we tend to do is we tend to get people to make lists, don't we? Lots and lots of lists. How many ideas can you come up with? How many things can you think of that could help you? How many people could you list who might help you? And if we do all of that at this point in time, and come back to the point that you made earlier, it gives you more choice because you can choose from all of those options after you've made a great big long list of the different things that could help you.
Well, the interesting thing here is we can provide a tool here, inspirationally titled Oh Ideas. And what we'll do is we'll make a link available in the description below where you can download a free template to be able to use this tool. And what it will do is enable you to explore a range of options, explore how you might engage other people, how you might get their buy-in. And we'll also help you to understand some of the obstacles and things like that. So we'll give you a template to support your thinking.
Brilliant. No, good idea. Hey, that's creative.
Well, the next step, of course, is we've now got loads of ideas, and it's not uncommon when people use our creative tools to come up with literally hundreds of ideas in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
When they can learn to free that imagination and let it kind of open up in terms of that. But of course, then you've got all this list of things that you could do, that you might be able to do. I imagine that's why the next step is labeled critical thinking.
Yeah, because you've got to make some choices. You've got to make some decisions at some point in time. You've got to decide what you want to do. And those decisions could be based on things like cost elements. They could be based on things like practicality. They could be based on speed. They could be based on, ease and the impact that they're going to bring. But you do have to make a decision. So the third element, you quite rightly say, is doing some critical thinking. And the critical thinking element for us means that you have to evaluate all of your ideas. You have to think about how fit they are for purpose or not. You've got to think about in terms of, and let's go back to goals, the relevance of the ideas that you've got and the people that you want to involve in terms of this particular thing that you want to achieve or solve. Because the evaluation enables you to prioritize. The prioritization enables you to make a commitment and move forward.
What's interesting though, Rob, I mean, like you said earlier, we do this all the time with lots and lots of different people. And quite often, it's not necessarily the initial thinking that gets them to the outcome that they ultimately want. Quite often, they'll test, they'll try some of their ideas, and they probably won't get necessarily exactly what they expected. But what they do is they come back to that list that they've created, and often with new insight. It's the ideas they've already thought of that now come into play and can be really powerful for them and springboard them forward in terms of achieving their goal, can't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it just reminds me again of a sales team that I worked with, a European sales team where I worked with, where they were trying to put a competitive pitch to a client. They went with what they thought the client would accept. It didn't work. And when that particular sort of salesperson, actually it was a pair of them, came back to speak to their manager, they went back over the ideas that they had created to begin with and rejigged it and thought, well, hang on a second, we haven't applied this, we haven't applied that. How about if we reformed our pitch and went back to the client with a different way of maybe tackling this particular problem? They did so. 2 days later, won the business. And it was a substantial piece of work that they won. So, that really illustrates your point, really nicely. And it, just immediately sort of brings that memory to the fore for me, because, that's one of the other benefits to doing all of this creative thinking. Instead of just going, I've got an idea, let's pursue it. Let's create as many ideas as we can, because you've got a plan B, a plan C, a plan D in the background, should you need them. So there's many benefits to having that sort of creative step and then doing the critical thinking on the back of it.
And of course, at the end of that, you've got some ideas, you've got a plan, you've now got to make that commitment that you talked about in terms of this is my plan and I need to own it. So that's step one in terms of the commitment. And then the next step is actually putting in the time to do some of these things that you've come up with in terms of ideas.
Yeah.
And that actually might mean that you need to plan out some sub-goals. So you go round again and get clarity around some of those sub-goals, get creative around how you might go about them before getting critical and making some choices in terms of what to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we were to summarize then, what we're really saying in all of this, Rob, is actually it's all about choice. We get to choose what to focus on.
Yeah.
We get to choose how important this is to us. We get to choose in terms of taking on those things that we feel confident in and being able to deliver. And if not, we can do some thinking, some creative thinking that might help boost that confidence.
Yes.
Then we need to move to the creativity piece, and that's all around options, others, and obstacles. And the watch out is below in the description. There'll be a link to our O Ideas template to help you be more creative before getting critical and evaluating. So what is the criteria by which you want to evaluate? Is it about ease versus impact in terms of deployment? Is it about cost versus benefit? Is it just about urgency versus important, for example? And then it's about making some choices about what you are going to do, by when, and who you're going to involve, and making that ownership and commitment to the plan.
Spot on. 3 easy steps about getting stuff done.
Next time on The Question Is.
Most of us now go to work, and what the company's really paying for is our ability to think, whether that's knowledge, whether that's judgment, whether that's a particular expertise. Most people we deal with anyway, in the kind of working industrial world, the office-based world, are in what I would call a cognitive-based role as opposed to a task-based role.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.